Boston Architectural College, AutoCAD 1-2D drafting. Hello everyone, and in this video we're going to start putting detail into our plans, and to do that we're going to be looking at AutoCAD blocks to create those detail symbols such as doors, windows, etc. So what is a block? A block is a way of collecting geometry together into one object which you can use repeatedly in your drawings. Each block has to have a unique name and insertion point and will contain some AutoCAD entities such as lines, arcs, circles, or text. And AutoCAD blocks have two parts. They have a definition and an instance or an insertion. A copy of the block is known as an instance or an insertion, and the block definition is stored in the database of your drawing. So let's zoom in around this area here where we need to create a door on our plan. So I'm going to change my layer to 0. Ideally, all blocks are drawn with the entities on layer 0. And I'm going to start with a rectangle. I'm going to click over here where the hinge part of the door would be and put in D for dimensions. And this door is going to be 1.75 in the horizontal and 36 inches along the width of the door, or the vertical. And I'm going to click up here to anchor the final rectangle on the plan, and then we'll draw an arc, and I'll pick start, center, and end. So here's my start point on the opposite side of the door opening. The center is all of these dynamic input. Okay, and so here's the center point here, and then the end point is up at the top of the door. So that's all the graphics we need to represent the door in plan, just essentially a rectangle and the swing of the door. So now we're going to create a block out of this, and we'll do that. We'll start the block command, type in BLOCK, enter, and this dialog comes up. So the first thing we need is a unique name for our block, and I'm going to call this door and dash 36. So a simple name, but makes it very clear as to what it is. And now we need to pick the insertion point, a very important thing to do with a block. And I'm going to pick the hinge point because this is where it will connect to the wall. Then over here we need to select the objects. I'm going to click on the arc and then the rectangle and then hit enter. Takes us back to our dialog. We see a little picture of what we're creating, and we're going to allow exploding in case we want to be able to change it. And we'll say OK. And the block disappears. And now what we're going to do is change the layer to the door layer, A plan door, and then go over here to the insert command, and we click on that, and we see there is our door we just created. I click on that, and now I can drag that in from the base point and click to the location I want it to be. So there is the first instance or insertion of our door 36 block. Now I'm going to scroll out or zoom out and then zoom into the front part of our building here where we need another instance of that door block. And first I'm going to draw the jambs, because this is a door inside of a masonry wall, so we have to have some jambs attached to that opening. Note that this opening was 3'4", so I have a 2 by 5 inch rectangle, and I'm going to click and then move it from the midpoint over to the midpoint of the wall, and then I'm just going to copy that over to the other side of the opening. So CP, enter. Grab my little rectangle, grab the midpoint there, drag it over to the other side, and click on the midpoint of the other side of the opening. Alright, now I'm going to go back up to the insert, click on insert, there's the door 36, and bring that over and snap that in place at the edge of the door frame. So that's another instance or insertion of the door 36 block. Now I'm going to scroll out and pan up to this other opening up here where I have another door, and it's a different door type. So I'm going to change this to layer 0, and we're going to draw the 30-inch door. So I'm going to start the rectangle command, and I'm going to click up here and start type in R for rotation, and the rotation is going to be 45, and then type in D for the dimensions, and the first dimension I need is the length, which is going to be 30 inches, and the width, which is going to be 1.5 inches. Type that in, hit enter, and there's our door at the 45-degree angle. Now I just need to click to anchor the rectangle on the right on the plan, and I'm going to start the arc command, and I'm going to use start center angle. So the start point is the other side of the door opening, the center is the hinge point, and then I'll start drawing the angle, and I can put in a distance here or an angle. I'll put in 55 degrees, so we have our arc going beyond the panel of our door. Now we need to turn this into a block, so I'll start the block command, type in block, enter. Dialog comes up, and I need to give this a name, so I'm going to call this door-30. It's a 30-inch door. Simple name, describes what it is. Pick our base point. Click here. I'm going to again click on the hinge point, and now select our objects. Just drag a crossing window across the arc and the rectangle, and then I'm just going to hit OK. And what we have disappears. Now if I go back up here, change to my A-plan door layer, and now go to the insert, and now we should see two doors there, and there's our door 30. I can click on that, drag that over by the hinge point or the base point that I defined. Now before I place it, I need to change the orientation or the swing of this door. So I can do that by typing in Y, enter, and then putting in a -1 scale factor for the Y scale factor, and hit enter. Now the door flips to the other side, and I can place it on the outside of the wall, and now it's in the right orientation as it is on our handouts for this for our building plan. I'm going to scroll out with my mouse wheel and then scroll or zoom back in over here. But before I place this block, let's take a look at what happened. And when you make a block, each block kind of has its own X and Y axes attached to it. So no matter what you do, if you rotate the block, the X and Y axes always stays related to the same parts or portions of the block as it was made. So when we bring in a block and rotate it, we just have to be aware of how we made it and what the X and Y axes are, so that we can flip it if we need to along the proper axes. And when I say flip, when I'm talking about a block, actually what I mean is that we're scaling it in a negative direction along one of those axes. So let's try and insert another one here. We'll go back up to our insert command, go to our door 30, and here it comes down. Now I do need to rotate this, so I can just type in R, and it's a -90, and put that in place. Now in that case, I didn't have to do any negative scaling or flipping, because all I had to do was rotate the door to get it in the right orientation. But let's take a little closer look at how this works. So what I'm going to do is not really place a door, but just bring it in on the plan here for you to see how this will work. So there on the right is a graphic that we had up before showing the door and the X and Y axes, how they relate to the parts of it, so that the X-axis is along the door opening and the Y-axis is along the door panel. So I'm going to pan out, zoom out rather a little bit, and go to Insert and bring in our door 36 and bring it over, and then we're just going to flip it along an axis. So what we'll do is I'll put in X for the X-axis and put in a -1, and you'll see that it flips along the X-axis, which is along the door opening. Now if I try the Y-axis and put in a -1, now it flips along the Y-axis, which is along the door panel. So the door panel goes in the opposite direction. And while in this mode, I can type in X and 1 and flip it along the door opening in the positive direction, so actually reorient the door again, and then I could place it if I wanted to. So let's try that again, but this time we're going to try a rotation. So I'll bring the door 36 in, and I will type in R for rotation, and I will put in 90 degrees, and there my door rotates. So we see on our graphic that as the door rotates, the X and Y axes follows along those same portions of the doors. So when I put in X and then a -1, it flips along the door opening, which is the X axis of our door. And if I put in Y and a -1, it flips along the X axis, which is the panel portion of our door. And now I could place the door in the correct orientation that I needed it on my plan. So that's how that works, and just something to be aware of about the axes, and when you're doing the negative flipping or negative scaling actually is what it is. So let's place, we have another door to place here, and we have our door 30, which needs to come into this opening here. So let's rotate it, and it rotates -90, and I can click it in place. And now we need to bring in another instance of that door 30 block. So I'll go back up to my insert, select the door 30, and bring it down. And this is going to need a rotation of -90. And then we are going to need to flip it also X and -1 along its X axes, and then click it in place, and there we have our double door swing located properly on our plan with all the portions in the right orientation. So there we have most of our doors in place. Now let's scroll or zoom out and then zoom back in to the front where we need to start looking at our windows. So here we see a little graphic of the windows, how they were to be drawn. And the first thing we're going to do is, as we did before, go back to make layer 0 the active layer, because all blocks should initially, oops, I hit the color thing, I don't need that, it is white. Go back and there, layer 0. All block components should initially be drawn on layer 0 unless you have another particular reason for doing it, but in general the rule is to draw all the components on layer 0. So I'm going to start here and then use a tracking point and then come off 1 inch and then click for my start point and then drag and put in D for dimensions, and my width is going to be 36, and then my height or depth is going to be 17, because I'm going to essentially make this block for the 16-inch wall, and each sill overhangs the front of the wall about 1 inch. Now I'll go back up to my rectangle, hover over this and get my tracking point, come up 4 inches, click, and start dragging the rectangle. Type in D for dimensions. The length is 36 inches, and then 5 inches, and then click to locate it, orient it on the plan. One more rectangle, start there. D for dimensions, 1.5, and then 5. Click to orient it, and then we just need to copy that over. So copy, click there, and then click up the upper right hand corner to locate it on the other side of the window opening. And now we just draw a line down the middle to represent the sashes on the window. Click and then enter to get out of the command. Okay, now we just need to create a block out of this. So type in block, enter, the dialog comes up, and I will put in WNDW window in plan for plan, and then this is a wall 16, I'll call it. Pick my base point, and I'm going to click where it meets the front of the wall, and then select my objects. Just drag a crossing window to grab all of the portions, hit enter. And I'm going to change this delete to retain. All of these things will make a block, but what I want to do is retain the objects in their simple state so that I can modify them, and I'll click OK. And nothing happens here, but if we go up and look at our insert option here, we see in fact the window was made. So any of those options will actually create the block. It just means what happens to the objects on the screen. So I'm going to just change this and drag this up so that it fits my 18-inch wall, and then make a block again. Start the block command, enter, and I have a name in here, but I just need to change that to 18 instead of 16. And again, pick a base point, the front corner of where it meets the wall. Select my objects, drag a crossing window to select all those portions, all those components, hit enter, and this time I do want it to delete. I'll select that, go OK, and everything disappears. Now I can come up and change my active layer to the A-plan window, go to my insert, and there I see my 2 blocks, and one is the 18-inch wall, so I'm going to bring that in place. Click it, and there we have our first window located in plan. I'm going to pan over to the other side of our plan where I know I have some other windows. So the 18-inch windows could go there, but let's move up to this other side where the 16-inch wall is, and I'm going to bring that in, insert that block, and we need to rotate it, and it's a -90, and then snap that in place. And there we have the window with the right size for the 16-inch wall located on our plan. Now let's do a zoom extend so we can see what's going on here. We got most of the components in place, and we just need to finish our plan by locating a couple more doors in the windows. The windows we can either use an insert, or we could just copy the one that we have in place there, and essentially then our plan is pretty much complete. And in the next video we'll start working on the elevations, so we'll see you then.